Hi everyone and welcome back to SwitchUp. Now it's the beginning of January and Glen came up with an awesome idea.
Yeah, so basically at the end of each month, usually we do a score roundup, the highest rated games for that previous month in terms of the scores they got, going from the lowest obviously up to the highest. But last month we didn't get to do as many reviews because we had other bits going on, namely the 12 Days of SwitchUp series we did. So I thought it'd be nice to carry this series on, but in a different format for this 1 month, where we look at the highest scored game for each of the months for last year, obviously January through to December. So a couple of quick caveats before we start. We didn't cover every game that released, of course. This is only games we reviewed. It's a couple of big ones. Xenoblade Chronicles 3, Persona 5, we didn't review. We covered them, but we didn't give them a score, therefore they're not in this list. And of course, if you had a very good month where you got a whole bunch of 90 plus games, only one of those is going to be in the list. Next month, the highest score could have been 85, and that's the way it's going to work. Do you know what I mean? But you'll see a nice overview of the year.
Beautiful. As always, do save 10%. I think we got the discount going again, didn't we, yesterday?
Should be up, yep.
So you can save 10% using code SwitchUp over at switchup.gg if you're going to buy any of these games on the eShop. Okay, what were the best games for each and every month of 2022? Let's find out.
Okay, let's start with January then, and the highest scored game for that month was Pokemon Legends. So you reviewed this one for us. What were your thoughts on it?
When I first played it, I thought it was amazing. I was really pleased with the shift in focus to the open world. Obvious Breath of the Wild inspirations, but it still was core Pokemon, wasn't it? You still went out and explored, but I loved the freedom of being able to catch and do anything. Well, you love this as well.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this one. This came second on my games of the year, and I liked the fact that you could catch without battling. You could sneak up and catch. I thought that was a really nice new feature. I enjoyed the battling system in that you could, again, avoid battles if you wanted to. Go into them. You could then try to catch them from a weakened state as you could, in previous games. I just thought it was a nice mesh of new and old, really.
I think, as we were saying before, you will really like the new one. If you like that, you'll love the new one because you can have them just kind of wandering around capturing while you're just going about your business. So there's that added in, which makes it a lot more streamlined, you know?
It's quite interesting that this game released in January, isn't it? And obviously did very well. And whereas the new one released in December, and it was quite clearly rushed. And you could almost see someone at the Pokemon company go, hang about, we released this after Christmas. You're crazy. Like, we're not doing that again. And then obviously this time that was, they made sure they didn't do that.
Exactly right. But in their defense, for the first time, they were patching it all year long, weren't they?
Yeah. It still had some graphical issues, didn't it? There was a lot popping in the game.
I'm looking forward to the next patch for the new one. See what happens.
Yeah, absolutely. But this one got a SwitchUp score of 86%.
Beautiful. All right, the next one then is Atelier Sophie 2. Now, it was essentially a continuation of the first game in that it was almost a reimagining of the Atelier series. I think there was a huge refresh in the visual department. A lot of the systems were streamlined, and I'm not going to claim to have played every Atelier game. I think there's like 26 of them or something.
So that's just on the Switch, isn't it? There's so many of them, it's crazy.
Just one every other week for a year. Like.
Right, yeah.
But this one I really enjoyed. I do love the character of Sophie. She's much less used than Ryza, obviously. Thick thighs save lives, is it? Something like that?
That's what they say,
That's what they say. I'm not sure what they mean.
No, I don't know.
It confuses me, that one. But in terms of the storyline, this one's a little bit more light-hearted. I did enjoy, again, it's very similar to Ryza. So if you've played that, it's classic JRPG in many ways, except you've got the Atelier mechanic of brewing potions and then using those for missions. Go and get me this potion that fixes this creature. Gather the ingredients, head back. Bob's your uncle, Fanny's your aunt.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, okay, fair enough. But all in all, a very good game. Does what it does well.
Yep.
And it got a score of 89%, this one.
Lovely job.
Moving into March then, the highest scored game for that month and joint highest for the year, as you'll see, was Triangle Strategy.
Triangle Strategy. I think you could probably, if you laid the story of Triangle Strategy out, it would take an entire month to read.
Yeah, exactly right. You're not wrong. You're not wrong.
It's a tactical turn-based RPG. Have I said that right?
You have?
I think so. Yeah.
Yep, I'll go along with that, yeah.
Yeah, and it follows a very familiar premise if you're used to things like Tactics Ogre and classics like Disgaea. It does use elevation very well. I know you've started playing. Have you started playing this?
Yes, I have. I played about an hour of it, but as you know with this game, that means I've read the first paragraph, so but I can see there's a very deep game underneath there, but it's just getting to it, isn't it, that early stage.
And the biggest barrier for entry for this would be getting into it.
Yeah.
If you're not a fan of those huge story sections. But still, I absolutely loved it. I thought it was brilliant. A real return to form for this genre, really, that's seen a lot of, not boring, but very similar iterations And for that month of March, it scored a SwitchUp score of 95%.
Yeah, very impressive. Okay, then let's move into April, and this one, maybe one that some people have forgotten even released, to be honest. This was Lego Star Wars The Skywalker Saga.
This was an interesting one because this kind of had the backstory of the behind the scenes, what do they call it, crunch.
Yeah.
So with this company, they keep on their, basically to their developers, they throw ideas at it and say to the developers, make it happen.
Oh, okay.
And this game has like 100 systems in it.
Yeah.
Like things for everything. Like the RPG mechanics, they increased those massively. And then they were like, well, actually, we want it open world.
Right.
Make us an open world.
Yeah.
So behind the scenes, I think the developers were really struggling to fit everything in. Then obviously it's proved to be like the most popular Lego game ever.
Yeah, it's funny with Lego games because the first one I ever played was the Lego Batman game, the first Lego Batman game. So obviously back then you didn't have voice acting.
No.
It was all very much physical humour in terms of the
Voice acting,
characters. It was like almost like, it wasn't isometric as such, but it was a fixed camera where you
I
could
remember.
kind of shift it slightly, couldn't you? And it's quite easy to say, oh, they're all the same, these Lego games, but there has been an evolution there.
Definitely.
It's just easy to overlook because there's so many of them, I guess, isn't it?
Yeah, it's funny you should say that because I played those and then there was the Jurassic Park ones.
Yeah, there were, yeah.
But in between, I played the Marvel superhero ones.
Right, yep.
And they're more open. Like, you've got a city to fly around. And actually the Lego City Undercover, is it?
Yeah, that's a very different
That's
beast,
very
isn't it, that
open,
one? Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah.
So you can almost see the like you say, the progression of the games. But this one, absolutely brilliant. Like if you've got friends to play with as well, like amazing. You can split screen on a Switch, which is always nice.
Nice,
the performance doesn't stink too badly. But yeah, really enjoyable. Good RPG mechanics. And I think it scored a SwitchUp score, he says, looking at his phone, of 89%.
It did indeed. There we go. Right, moving into May now, and this next one was a game that was reviewed for us by Asdin over at Grinning Wolf Games. There'll be a link to his channel down below. And this was a game called Wolfstride. Now this was a game that was very heavily inspired by manga, anime, had that kind of classic black and white look to it.
Remember that.
Very striking art style. And it was based around the idea of like mech tournaments.
Okay.
Whereby you had to obviously participate and win and go through these tournaments. But it used a system quite akin to something like No More Heroes, where you had like jobs that you completed to earn money to then upgrade to then do better in the next fight or the next tournament. And it had three main characters that were quite endearing, all very different, and it just pulled everything together quite nicely. Asdin really enjoyed this one. I saw him talking about it in one of his videos recently about his favourite games of last year. Nice. So it obviously made a big impression on him, and again, I'll put a link to that particular video down below. But yeah, this was, again, maybe one that you wouldn't have necessarily remembered with so many games coming out last year. It was nice to see it doing well and be in the top rated game for this particular month with a score of 89%.
Holy moly. Well, into June then, and one that Glen doesn't know much about, so I might need to do all the talking.
Yeah, you may well need to.
And, got to educate him. It's TMNT, Shredder's Revenge.
Shredder's Revenge, yeah. So this was my game of the year, as I've mentioned recently. Absolutely love this game. I'm a big beat-em-up fan, as I've said many times. A big Turtles fan, as I've also mentioned once or twice. And this just meshed those two things together beautifully. It was the peanut butter and jam sandwich of video games, and it took the best elements of previous beat-em-ups, specifically Turtles beat-em-ups in Turtles in Time, and it modernised everything, gave it a nice sheen, was very respectful to its source material, which I do appreciate, because that 80s cartoon does get mocked sometimes now, because it was quite cheesy, and especially as the series went on, and new iterations have come out that have been that bit darker and more edgy, and that one kind of got laughed at a bit, so it's nice to see it getting a bit of respect. But this was just, in terms of what it did for Turtles and for beat-em-ups, it was almost perfection.
Bit of a renaissance for beat-em-ups in the last few years?
I think so, especially on the Switch. I think that maybe that ease of co-op with the two joycon, that you can pass one over, not having to have two controllers when they cost like 70 quid each these days, it's definitely helped. And yeah, there's been a huge amount out there, and some bloody good ones as well.
Yeah,
really
lovely.
Good ones.
This game did look amazing. I still haven't actually played it.
We played a bit of it together.
Oh, did we?
If you remember, but I say a bit. I'm talking the couple of levels or so, wasn't it? Yeah. But yeah, no, you need to give it a proper go.
There you go. Those controllers are expensive, unless you look in the description. At our ones.
There we go.
Yeah, plug.
Use that discount code. There we go. It's almost like a plan. That. This got a SwitchUp score of 91%.
Brilliant. In July then, we had the Portal Companion Collection, which I was so happy to see arrive on Switch. Finally getting that Source engine come across, which opens up the doors for a few other releases, potentially. Whether or not it will happen is up to only Gaben knows. But these were brilliant. They worked really nicely. They're quite unique still. There's a couple of games that have kind of copied the same premise, but they're still reasonably unique, aren't they? And if you've not played them before, the whole Portal mechanic of solving puzzles still will bend your brain. Yeah, and they're just very, very good games. Sorry, go on.
No, sorry, Matt. I was just going to say it's funny with puzzle games, specifically. I find that it is quite easy to overlook the mechanics or to almost undermine them as being too simple. Yeah. But if you think about what has to go into creating a portal in a game, dropping out of another one somewhere else, and making sure that everything is as it should be as you fall out the sky into that new area.
Exactly right.
It's crazy, really, isn't it?
Yeah, those physics, because they have to shift, don't they?
Yeah.
The physics that go in then have to shift to where it comes. It hurts my brain. There's smarter people than I making these things, thank goodness, because otherwise you'd just be stood in a room.
With a little side gun, it doesn't work.
Yeah, just like a little one of those party poppers that goes.
But no, yeah, you're absolutely right. Great games. Well, I say that I've only ever played the first one back in the day, but I've heard the second one's even better. So
excellent game.
To have the two together is good stuff.
Have your cake and eat it.
Quite literally in this case, yeah.
And that scored
90%. This one.
There you go. We're like a double act.
Yeah, it's good, isn't it?
In August then, we had a series that is really dear to my heart and yours as well, and then another one that, well, it goes without saying, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So this was a tie. We had 2 games this month with obviously the highest score. We'll start with the one you reviewed, Mark, and that was 2 Point Campus.
Yeah, 2 Point Campus is funny actually because Glen reviewed 2 Point Hospital a few years before, and that just blew us away. It really was Theme Hospital just made for a new audience, wasn't it? And even had some of the same development team. 2 Point Campus, I wasn't sure personally how the transition would go to the campus style.
Yep.
I loved the different diseases, the bloaty head and things like that. You know, I liked that system. But it, unsurprisingly, I guess, because they thought it through, works really well.
Yeah, I haven't played this one yet, I must be honest. I bought it recently, but it's there waiting to be played. But I agree with your sentiment of the setting.
Yeah.
I wasn't quite sure.
Right.
There's something about hospital, because obviously in real life they're so clean and clinical and you know, they're places you don't necessarily want to be.
Yeah.
Setting a game there just intrigues me.
Yeah.
And I suppose you could say the same about being at school, not wanting to be there, but it just didn't have that same pull for me when I saw that was the new release, you know?
Yeah, and I think as well for us, it's different in America. It's quite an American setting, isn't it?
Yeah,
we don't have things like the fraternities and stuff like that. It just doesn't exist, you know. You went down the common room and did naughty things in the allotments and stuff out the back, you know. It's not the same.
All the alpha, beta, omega. I don't even know what that means. I know what it means in Greek. But in terms of schools and fraternities and stuff, it's just a whole new world to us, isn't it? So
maybe
it
just doesn't translate as well.
So some of that humour might have been lost on us. But aside from all that, kind of, you know, going a bit of a tangent there, that core gameplay, as you said, remained just as strong, didn't it?
Yeah, really good. And actually some improvements as well in terms of how you build the rooms and things like that. It was a bit more streamlined.
Nice.
And then you've got on the other side of that same month, same score.
Yeah, so we had the Cowabunga collection, so another Turtles game. You wait ages for one, 2 come along at once, and well, I say 2. This had 13 games on it, so
that's a lot of games.
That is a lot of games, and they were some very good games. You know, you had a nice mix as well, because you kind of assume it's going to be all beat 'em ups, and it is beat 'em up heavy. Don't get me wrong, but you had the original NES game, which was like a platformer.
Okay.
You know, divides people in terms of whether it's a good game or not. I like it, but it's definitely got that nostalgic pull. You had the 2 NES beat-em-ups, you had Turtles in Time, of course, for the SNES and the arcade, and it was lovely to see both of those versions because they are quite different. You had Hyperstone Heist, which was the Mega Drive Genesis version of that game. The Tournament Fighters, you know, so there was a nice mix, the original arcade game. Yeah. And it was just lovely to have them all in one collection. There was some nice extras on there in terms of bits of history. You know, you went into this room and you were picking up comics off the table, the virtual table and stuff. I think that could have been a little better. I think the thought was there. They really did think about what they wanted to do, but they could have done things like just include the intro for the cartoons or things like that.
Just little details.
Little details. The online wasn't great on launch. It only applied to a couple of games and it wasn't brilliant. I've heard that's been patched since and more games have been included.
Sweet.
Haven't tried it, but it could well be better since.
Lovely.
But yeah, no, 2 very good games for that month.
And they scored 90%.
They did. You beat me to it. Look at that.
Lovely. September then. September was a great month for me personally because it was where we saw the return of Monkey Island. Or return to Monkey Island, I should say. Let's get it right, Mark. But straight off the bat, no one expected it to live up to any of, you just don't, do you? When you have a game a bit like your Turtles ones, you don't expect them to live up to the original. You expect them to maybe kind of harness your nostalgia so that you like them to a certain degree.
Pull on your heartstrings a little bit.
Pull on your heartstrings, but this did more than that. Like Turtles, it did more than that. It went the extra mile. It created a new story. It referenced the old things without being ridiculous, and it didn't go stupidly modern. You weren't filled with things that were making your eye roll every 5 minutes. You were like, oh, this feels like an old game. But it also feels like a new one because the controls are actually decent. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It's great. Isn't it weird when you have your old voice actors come back? Yeah. And their voices never change.
Yeah.
But most people's voices change.
Yeah.
Don't they? Like, I've listened to one of our videos at the start, and we sound younger.
I know, yeah.
We weren't always this sultry, gravelly toned voice.
Believe it or not, yeah.
Yeah, this is my real voice.
Mr. Patterson.
But playing that, it is comfortable, but it's not a comfortably made game in terms of the mechanics.
That's a nice way of putting it, yeah. It doesn't rely on nostalgia.
Exactly.
It builds on it.
Put that on your t-shirts.
There we go, another t-shirt.
I wish we had a link to that.
Exactly. But yeah, so we mentioned a highest score earlier, and this is the other one, Mark. You got a SwitchUp score of?
95%.
95%, dear me.
Wowzers.
Right, October then, and for this month, the highest rated game was Mario and Rabbids Sparks of Hope, which, it's another sequel in this quite odd marriage between two sets of characters that shouldn't go together, should they?
Yeah, I don't know how it ever happened, to be honest. I don't know anyone that actually likes the Rabbids.
No, I know, yeah.
They're right pain in the arse. But as far as game design goes, like Ubisoft have done a cracking job with this one. It is Ubisoft, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. It's brilliant. They've improved on all the systems. I think it's kind of flown under the radar of a lot of people because there are a lot of releases coming out at the same time and things people were looking forward to, like Persona and No Man's Sky and things like that. So, yeah, I think a lot of people kind of didn't pay as much attention, but I loved it. I thought it was brilliant. And it's very few games that you can push through all the way to the end and still be enjoying it.
Yeah.
Especially when you're reviewing. It's almost like sprinting sometimes.
Power through, ain't you?
When it's supposed to be a marathon, isn't it?
Exactly, yeah.
So yeah, this one scored 91%. I highly recommend it. It's a brilliant game. Really good.
Nice. Right, nearly there then. So November, we had Tactics Ogre Reborn. So this was a game that started life as a Super Famicom game, then was remade on the PSP, I think I'm right in saying, and this is a remaster of that PSP version. Is that right?
Yeah, so this is essentially the godfather of TRPGs.
Yeah.
Or strategy RPGs, if you prefer that name. And they remastered it, and a fair play to Square Enix. I really feel like they've, after the Kingdom Hearts debacle, where everyone was like, it was Kingdom Hearts, wasn't it?
Yeah, the cloud version.
Yeah, where everyone's like, don't do that. Like, don't release cloud versions. No one wants it. I'd like to think that they can kind of pick up on the general room temperature and say, well, actually, people aren't liking those.
Yeah.
People want us to put the effort in. And when they have put the effort in like this, like Nier Automata, the games have been incredible. Like, they've been really enjoyable. They've worked really well on Switch. This one, I'd never really played the original. This is one that I knew was the godfather, but I'd never really played it. You can only go on what people say and how good it was and how it inspired Final Fantasy Tactics. But getting back to play it, it's core TRPG rather than all the waffle. It's you get in, you play the game, you do your strategies, you lose horribly because this is brutally difficult at the start until you've built up your squad. And then you can kind of see all the crossover ideas, like there's loads of classes in Triangle Strategy, and this kind of has the same thing.
Okay.
But yeah, really enjoyed it, and it scored very highly. And I'm going to look, it scored 93%.
It did indeed. So we went into December. There were only 5 reviews in December, which is unusual for us. But as I said, obviously there was a lot more going on that month. But one game that was reviewed, and thankfully so, as it turned out, was Chained Echoes.
Yeah, Chained Echoes by Matthias Linder, I believe. I think he's a German fella. I think so. Can't remember. But Chained Echoes is inspired by things like Chrono Trigger, classics of the... Is it from the SNES?
Chrono Trigger was, yeah.
Did you play Chrono Trigger?
Yeah, amazing game. I mean, you had... The SNES was such a hotbed of JRPG.
Yeah.
You obviously Chrono Trigger, you had the Final Fantasy games, most notably 6 or 3 as it was known at the time. And from what you've told me at least, they really harnessed that era, didn't they?
Right, okay. What about Xenogears? Because everyone's talking about this being similar to Xenogears as well. That's one I've definitely not.
I haven't played that one. Xenogears, it was a PlayStation release, wasn't it?
I don't know
it's not
one
I know a lot on. I know the Xeno series obviously has spawned other things since.
Yeah.
But it's not one I have a huge amount to say on, I must say.
Yeah, so essentially it's It looks traditional in terms of its styling. I mean, you've seen this one, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I do think sometimes what sets these apart is the writing and how well it's executed. For me, at least, the combat's very good. The other mechanics are very good, but there has to be something that kind of tips it over the edge.
Yeah.
Like Eastward. You know, I know some people found that was too long-winded and blah blah blah, but by the end of that, I felt like I'd experienced a complete game, and it was an experience, you know, that you almost reminisce on afterwards.
Right. Yep.
This is the same. This is really very well executed. I do like kind of the inclusion of the mechs and the way that you can use those for a bit of world traversal. You can get in this airship, all the classic things. All the classic things, you know. You say airship and it's like Final Fantasy all over, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
But as far as just execution goes, this is decent. What did it score?
It's got a very impressive score, actually. Almost matched the ones we've said so far.
Yeah.
94%.
94%. And it goes to show that the highest score isn't always your favourite game.
Yeah, exactly right. So there we have it. That's 12 months worth of high scores on SwitchUp. So as I said at the start, some games we didn't review, therefore they just cannot be in this list. We may have covered them in other ways. And some games may have fallen in a particularly good month, and unfortunately that means that they were beaten to the punch. If they'd have come out a month later, they'd have been on the list, you know.
Yeah.
But I just thought it'd be nice, a fun way of reminiscing on 2022 and what it brought us, and keeping this series going until we get some reviews going for this month, you know.
Exactly, yeah. It's a nice roundup for the year, isn't it? All right. If you do want to save 10% on any of these, use code SwitchUp over at switchup.gg. And just a big thanks to all of you that enjoy the channel, and Happy New Year.
Absolutely, yeah. So all that's left to say then is take care, of course, and until next time, happy gaming.